going to talk about Chennedy Carter, but it looks like she's blacklisted. And she will be playing professional basketball during the season, but it won't be for the WNBA.
Another element that intensified public reaction was footage showing Chicago Sky forward Angel Reese appearing to respond from the sideline after the play. Cameras briefly captured her clapping, and that short clip quickly spread online, where viewers interpreted it in different ways. Some fans claimed it looked like approval of the contact, while others argued it was simply a reaction taken out of context, possibly directed at something else happening on the court. In today's viral media environment, even a few seconds of video can spark massive debate, especially when slowed down, zoomed in, and reposted across platforms. Meanwhile, the officiating crew conducted their review process, analyzing the play carefully before issuing their decision to upgrade the foul. Their ruling stated that the contact met the definition of unnecessary and excessive, terminology that carries specific meaning within league guidelines. Official language like that often shapes public discourse, because it provides a framework fans and commentators use when forming opinions. Once the upgrade was announced, the conversation intensified rather than settled. For many viewers, the decision confirmed their belief that the incident deserved serious attention. They saw it as an example of the league reinforcing standards of conduct and emphasizing player safety. Others felt the scrutiny had become disproportionate, arguing that physical clashes happen regularly in competitive basketball and shouldn't always be treated as major controversies. This split in interpretation highlighted a larger truth about sports culture. The same moment can be seen as justified, excessive, accidental, or intentional depending on the perspective of the observer. What's important is that the fallout extended beyond the game itself. Analysts revisited Carter's previous on-court moments, comparing them to this incident and debating whether they indicated a pattern or simply reflected the intensity of a passionate athlete. Conversations about her reputation grew louder, and her name began appearing in headlines that focused as much on controversy as on performance. For professional athletes, reputation can be as influential as statistics, and once a narrative takes hold, it can be difficult to change. The league's response signaled its commitment to reviewing plays carefully and enforcing its rules, but it also demonstrated how a single decision can shape public perception. Fans often look to official rulings for guidance on how seriously to take an incident, and in this case, the upgrade ensured the moment would remain part of the season's ongoing storyline. By the time the post-game coverage began, the conversation had already expanded far beyond the hardwood. It wasn't just about a foul anymore, it was about sportsmanship, league standards, media narratives, and the power of viral clips. And as history shows, once a moment reaches that level of attention, it rarely fades quickly. Instead, it becomes part of the broader narrative that follows players throughout their careers, influencing how every future action is interpreted.
Seriously, she needs to do whatever she can to get some help, get her anger under control, where she will not have another incident like the one where she slammed into Caitlin Clark, but she's out of the league.
When the final buzzer sounded and players headed toward the locker rooms, reporters prepared for what they knew would be the most anticipated part of the night's coverage, post-game interviews. Journalists weren't just interested in the score or the statistics, they wanted clarity about the incident that had already begun trending online. Questions about the play were inevitable, and cameras were ready to capture every reaction, every word, and every expression. Carter eventually faced the media, and as expected, the first questions centered on the collision with Clark. Press conferences can be challenging environments even under ordinary circumstances, but they become especially intense when an athlete is being asked to address a controversial moment in front of a room full of microphones. In situations like that, tone and wording can shape public perception just as much as the answer itself. Her response was brief and guarded, which immediately drew attention. Some viewers interpreted her tone as dismissive, while others felt she was simply trying to avoid escalating the situation further. Athletes often receive media training encouraging them not to inflame controversies, yet short answers can sometimes be perceived as evasive or indifferent. That's the paradox of modern sports interviews: saying too much can create headlines, but saying too little can do the same. Clips of her remarks circulated quickly, accompanied by commentary from analysts and fans offering their own interpretations. Supporters argued she had every right to keep her response concise and move on from the topic. Critics, however, felt she should have addressed the incident more directly or expressed more visible concern. The divide in reactions reflected how differently people evaluate athlete behavior, especially when emotions from a controversial play are still fresh. In professional sports, public perception often hinges not just on actions but on responses to those actions. A single quote can be replayed repeatedly, dissected word by word, and used to support opposing narratives. For Carter, the interview became almost as widely discussed as the play itself, illustrating how post-game comments can shape the storyline just as much as on-court events. Ultimately, the moment highlighted the pressure athletes face in the media spotlight. They are expected to compete intensely, maintain composure, answer questions diplomatically, and represent their teams professionally, all while knowing that any misstep, verbal or physical, can become a viral talking point. Carter's interview became another chapter in an already heated discussion, reinforcing how quickly sports stories can evolve once cameras and commentary enter the equation.
Despite the solid fourth season from Carter, an incident with Indiana Fever guard Caitlin Clark stood out to many. The 2024 WNBA Rookie of the Year came in the league, became arguably the most popular player. There, I cleaned it up for you, which may have rubbed some people the wrong way, including Carter.
What happens when a player's reputation becomes so controversial that debates about their behavior begin to overshadow their actual performance on the court? That's the question many fans and analysts have been asking while discussing Chennedy Carter's standing within the WNBA. Over the past few seasons, her career has been surrounded by heated conversations ranging from past suspensions to locker room tensions to one highly publicized on-court incident involving Caitlin Clark that quickly went viral online. While some critics argue that these moments have damaged her image and strained her relationships within the league, others insist the narrative has been exaggerated and unfairly amplified by social media. What's undeniable is that Carter's name sparks strong reactions. Supporters view her as a fierce competitor whose passion sometimes gets misinterpreted, while detractors see a pattern of behavior they believe crosses the line of sportsmanship. The league itself has never announced any official blacklist, despite rumors circulating among fans, but the perception of controversy alone has been enough to keep her in the spotlight for reasons beyond basketball. In today's media climate, perception can feel as powerful as reality, and that's exactly why her situation has become such a widely discussed topic. Much of the renewed attention stems from that now famous play involving Clark, a moment replayed countless times across sports shows, TikTok edits, and debate panels. For many viewers, that single clip became symbolic of a larger conversation about physicality, respect, and competitiveness in professional women's basketball. It also reignited discussion about how the league handles intense rivalries and emotional moments on the court. Some fans argue the scrutiny Carter faces is disproportionate compared to similar incidents in men's leagues, while others insist professional athletes should always be held to the highest standard of conduct. Adding fuel to the fire was a recent interview in which Carter spoke candidly about the scrutiny she's received and about Clark herself. Depending on who you ask, her remarks were either honest and misunderstood or unnecessarily provocative. The reaction online was immediate and intense, with comment sections filling up with strong opinions from both sides. In the modern sports world, interviews don't just stay interviews, they become headlines, trending clips, and debate topics within minutes. This situation has turned into more than just a discussion about one player. It's become a reflection of how narratives form in sports culture, how quickly public opinion can shift, and how a single moment can define an athlete's image for years. Whether someone believes Carter has been treated unfairly or thinks the criticism is justified, one thing is certain: her story has people talking, arguing, and analyzing every detail. And when a player becomes that polarizing, the conversation stops being just about basketball and starts being about legacy, perception, and the power of public narrative.
She was signed to the Chicago Sky with Teresa Weatherspoon, with Angel Reese, with Camila Cardoso, and the rest of the folks. And then we get to the body check. This was originally ruled an away from the ball foul, but it was obviously a flagrant foul. It really upset a lot of people, which really escalated the issue. And it was really just poor sportsmanship on Kennedy's part.
June 1, 2024, initially looked like it would be remembered as just another regular season matchup between the Chicago Sky and the Indiana Fever. The arena in Indianapolis buzzed with anticipation, packed with fans eager to watch rookie sensation Caitlin Clark continue what had already become one of the most talked about debut seasons in recent memory. Jerseys bearing her name filled the stands, cameras were ready for highlight moments, and the energy in Gainbridge Fieldhouse felt closer to a playoff atmosphere than an early season contest. No one in attendance or watching from home expected that the night would soon become one of the most dissected games of the year. On the court, the matchup itself was competitive and intense. Both teams traded baskets, played aggressive defense, and showed the kind of physical effort that defines professional basketball at its highest level. Clark displayed the skills that had made her a household name: sharp court vision, daring passes threaded through defenders, and deep shots that brought the crowd to its feet. It was shaping up to be another impressive chapter in her rookie campaign, the kind of performance that keeps fans talking long after the final buzzer. Then came the sequence that would dominate headlines. During a transition moment late in the play, Carter and Clark crossed paths near midcourt. A whistle had already stopped the action, signaling that the immediate play was dead. Players began shifting positions, preparing for the next possession. In what seemed like an instant, contact occurred between the two guards. Clark went down, and the arena's energy shifted from excitement to stunned confusion. The collision itself lasted only a second, but its impact stretched far beyond that instant. Spectators who had been cheering seconds earlier fell quiet, trying to process what they'd just seen. Broadcasters replayed the clip from multiple angles, commentators debated intent, and social media lit up with slow-motion breakdowns before the quarter had even ended. In modern sports culture, controversial plays don't stay contained within the arena, they travel instantly across the world, where millions of viewers form opinions in real time. What made this particular moment so talked about wasn't just the contact itself, but the context surrounding it. Clark's rising stardom had already drawn intense attention, and any interaction involving her was bound to be magnified. Meanwhile, Carter's reputation as a fiery competitor meant viewers interpreted the incident through their existing perceptions of her style of play. Within minutes, the moment had transformed from a routine in-game collision into a flashpoint for debate about competitiveness, sportsmanship, and intent. By the time the game resumed, it was clear that something significant had happened, not just in terms of the scoreboard, but in terms of narrative. The matchup would no longer be remembered solely for the plays, the stats, or even the final result. Instead, it would be remembered for a single sequence that sparked league-wide discussion and ensured that this ordinary June game would become one of the most analyzed regular season contests in recent WNBA memory.
And then Chennedy just give you an opportunity to talk about that moment between you and Caitlin. What was that play, what was said, and kind of what led to.
Next question.
Yeah, I mean, play before Caitlin, it seemed like she turned to you a little bit.
Yeah.
After
I ain't answering no Caitlin Clark questions.
Did she say anything to you?
I don't know what she said.
What'd you say to her?
I didn't say anything.
That's enough. We're good. She's good.
Clark's own post-game remarks provided an interesting contrast and added another dimension to the night's narrative. When she spoke to reporters, she approached the questions with a calm, measured tone, emphasizing that basketball is naturally physical and that intense competition can lead to emotional moments. Rather than fueling controversy, she framed the incident as part of the game's competitive nature. Her composure impressed many observers, who praised her ability to handle a tense situation without escalating it further. Her response reflected qualities that fans and analysts often associate with leadership: poise under pressure, awareness of the bigger picture, and an understanding of how words can influence public perception. For a rookie playing in her first professional season, that level of composure stood out. It reinforced why she had quickly become one of the most recognizable faces in the sport, not just because of her scoring and passing ability, but because of how she carried herself in high-pressure moments. Observers noted that situations like this can shape an athlete's reputation for years. Some players become known for fiery reactions, others for calm diplomacy. Neither approach is inherently right or wrong, but each creates a different public image. Clark's comments positioned her as someone focused on the game rather than the controversy, a stance that resonated with many fans who admired her maturity. At the same time, the contrast between the two interviews fueled further debate online. Supporters of Carter argued that comparing responses was unfair and that each athlete handles media attention differently. Others believed the difference highlighted contrasting approaches to adversity. The discussion once again demonstrated how narratives in sports are rarely about a single moment; they're built from a combination of actions, reactions, and interpretations layered over time. What this entire episode ultimately shows is how one sequence in a game can ripple outward, influencing reputations, sparking debates, and shaping storylines that extend far beyond the court. The play, the review, the interviews, and the reactions all became pieces of a larger conversation about competitiveness, professionalism, and perception in professional basketball. In the end, the incident wasn't just about contact between two players. It became a case study in how modern sports culture operates, how quickly moments spread, how narratives form, and how athletes must navigate both competition and commentary simultaneously. And as long as fans keep discussing it, analyzing it, and debating it, that single moment will remain part of the evolving storylines that define both players' careers.